Sovereigns of the shattered multiverse. What if I told you that the multiverse meltdown has already begun? We're no longer talking about some distant theoretical threat or abstract physics jotted down on a chalkboard. I want you to step directly into this scenario with me right now. Let's really set the stage. Imagine a living storm, violent, totally unpredictable, and completely unstoppable, and it is tearing its way through the cosmic fabric toward every single reality, including our own, tonight. Picture crackling, unimaginable energies violently erasing entire star systems in the literal blink of an eye. Okay, let's dive deep into this explainer, because what we are looking at here is the absolute catastrophic unraveling of existence itself. I am going to break down exactly how, and more importantly, why the foundational architecture of everything we know is completely falling apart. So, I want you to imagine standing outside, just going about your day and looking up at a completely silent sky. The everyday noise of the world, the traffic, the wind, it just stops. Then, the normal blue darkness suddenly turns into this terrifying, bruised, blood-red hue. And right through that crimson haze, a second world literally appears directly overhead. It's growing massively larger with every single passing second. What we are seeing across countless realities is that dimensional barriers are violently collapsing. Entire histories are catastrophically colliding into one another. You can literally feel the gravity distorting. Skyscrapers from our world are suddenly pulling upward, pointing directly toward inverted skyscrapers on the encroaching earth above. Oceans begin to rip right out from their beds. It is a chilling, highly visceral signal that the foundational walls of our universe are completely, irreversibly shattered. Now consider the sheer human or superhuman toll this actually takes. When one universe can survive only if another is forcefully erased from existence, morality completely transforms. It becomes an impossible battlefield. Think about hardened, immortal survivors like Deadpool and Wolverine. These are men who have survived wars, dismemberment, and total annihilation. But here's the catch. They cannot punch, slash, or heal their way out of a dissolving universe. Suddenly, they find themselves completely paralyzed by decisions that no warrior should ever have to make. They're forced to weigh millions of lives against billions. Let me ask you, do you pull a lever to save 1 million souls in your world, knowing it instantly condemns 1 billion over there? Or do you stand entirely aside, paralyzed by the choice, and just watch every single world burn to ash? It turns survival itself into the ultimate, unwinnable tragedy. Just let the staggering weight of multiversal extinction sink in for a second. Look around at what our heroes are experiencing. Desperate survivors are violently fleeing their collapsing timelines. Strange, glowing, cosmic fractures are literally tearing open across space like jagged wounds in the air itself. And each one of these glowing cracks reveals another lost home, another version of someone who never even got the chance to be saved. Imagine watching innocent people accidentally fall through these tears, slipping into an absolute unmapped void of total nothingness. As those crimson heavens spread farther and farther above every horizon, blocking out the sun entirely, we are left staring at this impossible dilemma. When there are absolutely no good options left and the lifeboat is rapidly sinking, who gets to decide who survives? Section 1. Fractures and Displaced Legends. The destruction we are witnessing right now is not random. It's actually a massive systemic failure. The ancient guardians who have been quietly monitoring the flow of time for longer than most civilizations can even fathom are losing complete control. Timelines are violently fraying. Now, let's really understand the deeply tragic irony of what we call a displaced legend. Take Captain America, for example. He's a man who has always been this anchor of courage and absolute certainty. In a desperate bid to save his family, he seeks refuge inside a completely foreign universe. But the harsh physics of reality simply do not allow this. Just by existing in a timeline where he doesn't belong, his very cells are vibrating at an incompatible universal frequency. His immense temporal weight acts as a celestial magnet. Reality itself rejects him like a virus, and he unknowingly causes reality-shattering anomalies, fundamentally destabilizing the structural integrity of the exact place he hoped would be a safe haven. And the terrifying physics of this situation are essentially a massive cosmic trap. I want you to imagine the most brilliant scientists in the world frantically staring at command center monitors that are just completely bleeding red with anomalies. Energy readings are climbing exponentially beyond any known mathematical limits. The incredibly unsettling truth they realize is that these universes are no longer isolated parallel destinations. They have literally become massive celestial magnets pulling aggressively against each other. So if you manage to somehow stabilize one-dimensional tear, the sheer kinetic backlash guarantees that another catastrophic collision will erupt somewhere else. You're just trading one apocalypse for another. It is a completely inescapable chain reaction. Section 2, the Architect of Chaos. As investigators desperately search for any possible explanation for this systemic collapse, another revelation quietly changes the entire terrifying picture. We have Reed Richards, undoubtedly one of the greatest minds ever known, and he begins meticulously exploring solutions. He's mapping dimensional weaknesses, he's studying the incursions, and he's running complex probabilities that would literally shatter an ordinary human mind. But here is where the suspense really builds. Reed's impossible mathematics reveals something deeply chilling. Every single logical breakthrough he makes uncovers cold, hard evidence that someone else is already several moves ahead of him. Just imagine the psychological horror for the smartest man alive to realize he is decisively losing a game of multiversal chess. This hidden adversary isn't trying to stop the apocalypse. No, they are watching the exact same data and using this grand disaster as a massive, horrifying opportunity. This terrible realization pushes our greatest heroes into sheer, unadulterated desperation. What begins as cautious, scientific communication between worlds quickly devolves into a highly dangerous, secret alliance built on shared terror. Look, when the literal end of everything is staring you right in the face, universe-reshaping technologies are negotiated behind closed soundproof doors. Forbidden theories are suddenly put right on the table. We are talking about things like weaponizing time itself, or building antimatter bombs specifically designed to preemptively destroy an approaching Earth just to save their own. While ordinary citizens remain completely oblivious to these dark bargains, the clock just keeps ticking toward a future where unimaginable, unforgivable actions become the only viable way to survive. Section 3, the Guardian has fallen. Right before the absolute darkness fully sets in, there is this fleeting, deeply emotional moment of hope. Across these fractured boundaries, static-filled messages manage to travel between worlds. Thor encounters familiar faces, legendary warriors from distant timelines he never expected to see again. For just a few seconds, watching these champions gather, with magic and raw power combining in spectacular fashion, it creates this soaring feeling that maybe, just maybe, destiny itself might actually be rewritten. But I have to crush that hope for you right now, because our investigators make a devastating discovery. The ultimate temporal stronghold, the Time Variance Authority, lies in absolute ruins. I want you to imagine walking through the shattered corridors of time itself. Severed timelines just lie dead on the floor. The great temporal looms are completely smashed to pieces. The literal cops of time, the greatest guardians of multiversal balance, have been wiped out entirely. The system isn't just broken, it has been violently slaughtered. Panic immediately spreads like wildfire among the surviving leaders. The old cosmic safeguards are completely dead, and as whispers circulate about a force growing exponentially stronger with every single universe that collapses, a frightening truth emerges. This rising being no longer seeks mere victory in battle. This power seeks absolute godhood. Let's really analyze that for a second. This isn't just about destroying enemies or conquering territory. This is driven by an ego so massive it demands complete, total worship. It seeks total transformation over all existence, demanding the ultimate authority to mold and reshape reality entirely according to a single, uncompromising will. And then comes the revelation that pivots this entire event from a sprawling cosmic disaster right into a devastatingly personal tragedy. The mastermind behind this multiversal slaughter, the architect of this chaos, finally steps from the shadows. And the face revealed is not a stranger at all. It belongs to a fallen, trusted ally. Someone they admired, someone they considered a friend. We watch the tragic realization unfold that this person's accumulated grief, the permanent, unhealed scars from past losses, have actually mutated into a sick multiversal obsession. You see, they aren't destroying reality out of pure chaotic malice. In their mind, they are trying to forcefully erase a damaged, chaotic multiverse to replace it with their own twisted, perfect vision of salvation. They are literally trying to cure trauma with tyranny. Section 4, the final stand. Which brings us to the ultimate desperate mobilization. Events accelerate with breathtaking, terrifying speed now. I really want you to picture the staggering cinematic scale of this final battle. Impossible machines filling the blood-red skies. Massive, glowing portals tearing open across shattered, bleeding landscapes. You've got mutants, sorcerers, inventors, and intergalactic warriors uniting across fractured dimensions. You're seeing magic clashing directly with advanced machinery. But despite this extraordinary coalition, the enemy weaponizes stolen ancient knowledge to brutally reverse every single hard-fought victory. Defensive lines shatter like glass. One by one, the last strongholds fall. The conflict mutates from a war for victory into a doomed, deeply bitter effort to merely delay the inevitable unraveling of reality. Yet they fight on anyway, bleeding and dying for a future that will never even exist to remember their sacrifice. Eventually, the unimaginable happens. The multiverse finally breaks. I say this with a sense of pure, somber awe. Dimensional borders dissolve entirely. Timelines unravel like threads being violently pulled from a grand cosmic tapestry. Try to imagine what it looks like when reality just turns off. The stars extinguish one by one. The noise of 1 trillion worlds goes dead. We watch as the very fabric of existence collapses, and fragmented, broken histories drift into a pure, terrifyingly dark void. It is total, absolute emptiness. But this absolute destruction makes way for a terrifying creation. The floating remnants of existence are gathered by this rising ruler and pieced together in the dark into something entirely new. Section 5. Welcome to Battleworld. Which brings us to the eerie, perfect replacement reality that emerges from the literal corpses of dead universes. Welcome to Battleworld. It's a sprawling kingdom stitched together from the erased realities, entirely ruled by a singular self-declared god. The age of the sprawling, chaotic multiverse has ended, completely replaced by an absolute reconstruction imposed by unmatched power. But what is so deeply unsettling here is the Frankenstein-like geography of this new existence. Everything familiar is gone, and everything impossible is now entirely normal. Mountains formed from ancient magical realms literally share the same horizon with towering cyberpunk cities taken from forgotten timelines. Inside this newly formed world, the psychological horror is that the inhabitants live out fresh, completely oblivious lives. They go to work, they raise families, entirely unaware that their memories have been rewritten and they are walking on the graves of their own dead universes. But here's the thing. Absolute perfection is an illusion. The buried past is quietly, persistently bleeding through the cracks of this false utopia. It starts as a creeping dread, a literal glitch in the matrix of reality. There are chilling anomalies popping up everywhere. Children are waking up screaming from dreams of vanished timelines, perfectly describing streets and cities they've never visited. Forgotten ancient symbols are just bleeding through the walls of modern buildings. And most hauntingly of all, even the sky occasionally flickers, just for a microsecond, with impossible, ghostly images from realities that no longer exist. These clues prove that the foundational fabric of this fake world is violently resisting being overwritten. The past absolutely refuses to stay buried. And that leaves us with this final, lingering question hovering over the stitched-together remnants of existence. Can a world built from broken, stolen pieces by a self-declared god truly remain stable forever? We really have to consider the utter fragility of an ego that demands to hold reality together by sheer willpower alone. The balance of power has changed more dramatically than ever before, but the seams of this world are already beginning to tear. Will this world burst from an internal rebellion, or will the crushing weight of erased realities simply cause it to implode on itself? I want you to really think about this, process the sheer scale of it, and dive into the mechanics of this broken world. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the reality around you, and as always, keep learning.